Imagine being hunted by the armies of three different nations for centuries. Imagine having your culture considered an obstacle, your language banned, your leaders assassinated, and yet you resisted. This is the story of the Apache, the indigenous people who defied the Spanish, the Mexicans, and the Americans, and whose heritage lives on to this day. Long before they were known as desert warriors, the ancestors of the Apaches lived in the cold forests of northern Canada. Around the 15th century, they began a long migration southward. No one knows for sure why. Perhaps in search of better land, perhaps to escape from enemies. The fact is that they walked thousands of miles, crossing mountains, valleys, rivers, and forests until they reached the arid southwest of what is now the United States. It was there, amid the dry and unforgiving land of New Mexico, Arizona, and Texas, that their true story began. Lords of the Desert. While many peoples would succumb to the hostile climate, the Apaches adapted masterfully. They learned to find water where no one could see it, to hunt scarce animals, to build simple, efficient shelters. They lived in nomadic groups, moving according to the seasons, hunting trips and wars. They were discreet, light, and agile. They knew how to disappear into the landscape. Over time, they divided into subgroups. The Chiricahua, known for their bravery. The Mescalero, experts in hunting. The Lapin, who reached as far as Texas. The Jacarilla, among the mountains. And the Western Apache, further west. Each group had its own leaders, but they all shared a language, culture, spiritual beliefs, and a deep respect for the land. The turning point came with the arrival of the Spanish. Along with them, something new appeared, the horse. At first, the Apaches feared it. Then they desired it. And when they finally dominated it, everything changed. The horse gave them mobility, speed, range. The Apaches could now travel great distances, hunt more efficiently, flee more quickly, and, above all, wage war with greater impact. The fusion between Apache and horse was so intense that they quickly became one of the indigenous peoples most feared by the colonial powers. In the 17th century, the Spanish attempted to expand their colonies in the Southwest, but they encountered an unexpected obstacle. A people who would not accept submission. The Apaches attacked caravans, pillaged villages, and disappeared into the desert before the soldiers could retaliate. They were not fighting for expansion or power. They were fighting for survival. These clashes escalated over the decades, with waves of violence on both sides. The Spanish built forts, but the Apaches skirted around them. They knew every rock, every trail, every natural hiding place. In the 18th century, the Spanish Empire was already weakening. The Apaches took advantage. They organized lightning raids on Mexican villages, taking cattle, weapons, and supplies. For them, this was survival. For the colonists, it was terror. These actions cemented the Apaches' reputation as unbeatable warriors. But they were not just raiders. They had a structured society with defined roles, religious rituals, sacred songs, and a cosmology based on balance with nature. Despite the war, there were also moments of peace. Some Apache leaders made agreements with the Spanish, trading territories or supplies in exchange for a truce. These temporary alliances show the political intelligence of the Apaches. They knew when to fight and when to negotiate. But everything changed with the fall of Spanish rule and the emergence of two new enemies, independent Mexico and later, the United States. In the 19th century, the United States put into practice the idea of manifest destiny to expand from coast to coast, no matter what the cost, and the Apaches were right in the way. They brought soldiers, railroads, and armed settlers. They brought unfulfilled treaties, broken promises, and massacres. The American army had cannons. The Apaches had the desert and courage. It was in this scenario that some of the most legendary names in indigenous history emerged. The first of these was Mangas Coloradas, a Chiricahua chief, enormous in stature and charisma. He led several campaigns against the Americans, trying to protect his people, but he was betrayed. During a supposed peace negotiation, he was captured, chained, and bayoneted to death. His body was mutilated. His head was sent for study. This brutal act further inflamed Apache hatred. After Mangus's death, another leader emerged, Cochise. Elegant, firm, and strategic, he was wrongly accused of kidnapping a white boy. When he refused to hand over innocent people, he started a fierce rebellion that lasted for years. His attacks left a trail of destruction. Cochise did not fight for revenge. He fought for dignity. In the final years of his life, tired and seeking to prevent further suffering for his people, Cochise negotiated peace with the American government. His only request? To live in peace in the mountains where they had always been. The request was granted. Cochise died shortly thereafter, in 1874, and was buried in secret in a sacred ravine. No white man ever knew the exact location, but the fight was not over. The Apache spirit found a new leader, Geronimo. His real name was Goyawe. He became Geronimo after single-handedly facing a group of Mexican soldiers after his family had been brutally killed. Geronimo was different. He was more than a warrior, he was a shaman. He performed rituals, had visions, and believed he was invulnerable to bullets. And it seemed that was true. For more than 10 years, he led one of the most remarkable guerrilla campaigns in the history of the United States. He attacked villages in Mexico, crossed the border, disappeared into the mountains, and reappeared at another point. American and Mexican soldiers searched for him and could not find him. The Apache people saw him as a living symbol of resistance. But no one resists forever. In 1886, after being surrounded by more than 5,000 American soldiers and thousands of militiamen, Geronimo surrendered to General Miles. He and hundreds of Apaches were sent to Florida as prisoners of war. They were separated from their families and placed in camps far from their homeland. Geronimo lived the rest of his days far from his mountains. He died in 1909 in Oklahoma. Before he died, he said, "I should never have surrendered." With the end of armed resistance, the Apaches were forced to live on reservations, under military surveillance. Their dances were forbidden, their languages were banned in schools, their children were sent to boarding schools where they were punished for speaking their language. It was the beginning of a cultural genocide. For decades, the Apache people survived in silence, nurturing their traditions in the shadows. But the memory did not die. The stories were told in hushed tones. The rituals were celebrated in secret. The words were whispered in the children's ears. The flame never went out. It just waited for the right wind to burn again. Cultural renaissance and recognition. In the 1960s, that wind arrived. Indigenous movements across the country began to demand respect, recognition, and rights. The Apaches rose up. They created bilingual schools. They founded cultural centers. They revived ancient ceremonies. Museums were created within the reservations themselves to tell the story in their own words. Later, they began to operate casinos as a source of income and autonomy, something controversial, but which allowed investment in health, education, and infrastructure. Today, many Apaches serve in political office, tribal councils, universities, and indigenous movements. They are teachers, artists, scientists, and activists. They are the past that survived and the future that is being rebuilt. Even today, the Apaches celebrate their history with festivals, dances, songs, and ceremonies. Their spirituality, their connection to the land, their honoring of their ancestors, all of this is still alive. They are no longer just warriors. They are survivors, educators, leaders, symbols of resistance. The story of the Apaches is one of the most impressive lessons in human resilience. They have faced empires. They have been betrayed, exiled, silenced, but they are still here. Their language, once nearly extinct, is now taught to children. Their culture, once forbidden, is now celebrated. Their history, forgotten for centuries, now inspires the world. The Apaches teach us that true freedom lies not only in the land you walk on, but in the identity you preserve, even when everything conspires against it. If you've made it this far, it's because you value stories that need to be told. So subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and like the video. Share this video with someone who needs to know the true story of the Apaches. And comment below, which part of this journey impacted you the most? See you in the next video with more real, profound, and transformative stories.